Our top story, there are fears of a mutiny in Russia. Wagner chief is defiant. He wants revenge, and Moscow isn't taking it lightly. Russian authorities have issued an arrest warrant against the Wagner boss. Russian mercenary boss Yevgeny Prigozhin says that Wagner fighters had crossed the border into Russia from Ukraine and were prepared to go all the way against Moscow's military. He has also claimed that his forces downed Russian military helicopter. Russian authorities have instituted tighter security measures after the head of the Wagner Group called for the ouster of Russia's military leadership. Military vehicles were seen on the streets of central Moscow after the owner of Wagner private military contractor escalated his direct challenge to the Kremlin. Military vehicles cordoned off several streets in downtown Rostov-on-Don, a city in southern Russia. The measures come after the Wagner boss appeared to suggest that his 25,000-strong militia was en route to oust the leadership of the defense ministry in Moscow. Russia accuses mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin of calling for an armed mutiny. The Wagner boss alleged, without providing evidence, that the military leadership had killed a huge number of his fighters in an airstrike, and he vowed to punish them. Moscow says that Ukrainian troops are taking advantage of infighting between the Wagner mercenary group and the Russian military to ready an assault near the East Ukraine hotspot of Bakhmut, while the White House has said that it is monitoring the situation in Moscow. For more on this, we are now being joined by William Harrison Courtney, adjunct senior fellow at RAND Corporation. Thanks very much, sir, for speaking to WION.
Oh, yes.
Sir, you know, there has been this sort of a rebellion brewing for some time now, but this has escalated now into a direct challenge. Yevgeny Prigozhin wants the military leadership in Kremlin dismissed. How do you think this situation is going to pan out?
It's difficult to make predictions in fast-moving, uncertain environments such as this. Thus far, it does not appear that Prigozhin has carefully prepared a coup that would succeed in bringing in support from other elements of the security apparatus in Russia. He may have some support, but he does not appear to have predominant support. This reminds one of the August 1991 attempted coup against President Mikhail Gorbachev, which was not well prepared and failed quickly. This coup attempt may also fail quickly, but even if it does, Putin is going to be weakened for some time to come.
Sir, Wagner chief is now saying that his 25,000-strong force is ready to die to achieve this aim. He's called for an armed rebellion aimed at ousting the Russia's defense minister. Now, I want to understand from you, what are the options on the table as far as the Russian military is concerned? Because we've seen the generals appealing to the Wagner fighters not to heed Yevgeny Prigozhin's call, not to rebel. But beyond that appealing, are there any other options on the table for the Russian generals?
So there are several security forces in Russia under control of the Kremlin. One is the FSB, the main internal security organization. Another is Praetorian Guard, a Russian force for special protection of the Kremlin. So probably most of these forces would be available to support Kremlin efforts to suppress Prigozhin's rebellion.
Also, I want to understand from you, sir, is Ukraine ready, or will Ukraine take advantage of this situation of this sort of a mutiny between the Wagner Group on the one hand and the Russian military on the other? Is Ukraine ready to take advantage, and how can they do that?
Well, certainly, Ukraine ought to be prepared to take advantage. It has seen the tensions growing in recent months between Prigozhin and Russian military leaders, and sometimes Prigozhin's criticism has gone to the Kremlin itself. So this should not be a surprise. How Russia performs now on the battlefield will be a key issue. For example, if Russian military forces are divided or lose morale, Ukraine could take advantage of that. It's even possible that some Russian forces could be routed more easily because they've lost confidence in their leaders. So there's a lot of uncertainty here. It's difficult to make any predictions, but certainly this is an opportunity for Ukraine.
There's an opportunity for Ukraine. Sir, Wagner chief is now claiming his forces have downed a Russian military helicopter. There's no evidence as so far put forth about that, but that's a claim that they are making. How much damage can the Wagner Group do to the Russian military?
Well, the Wagner forces are mostly down closer to Ukraine. There are some in other places. So the damage would likely be localized rather than all across Russia. Unless there was a sign in Moscow that the leadership had lost confidence in President Putin. There is certainly a lot of elite dissatisfaction in Russia, both hardline elite dissatisfaction because the Kremlin has not prosecuted the war more successfully, and liberal dissatisfaction that the war has caused Russia's economy and social fabric to be strained and for the economy to go down. Thus far, we don't see wide-scale disenchantment in Russia, but as time goes on, the longer Prigozhin is allowed to stay free and mobilize his forces, the greater the risk that his appeal for his ideas could widen.
Mr. Courtney, one final question to you. You know, with Wagner Group now no longer in the battlefield against Ukrainians and, in fact, turning against the Russian military, it's sort of a double setback for the Russian forces. I want to understand from you, how will they evaluate this equation now? How much of a setback is this for the Russian military, which is fighting there on the battle lines, and especially in the city of Bakhmut, where Prigozhin played a key role, his fighters played a key role in the capture of that city?
The Russian troops have filled in for his troops, which have pulled out, but the quality of those troops, their training, may not be as good as the capability of the Wagner forces that pulled out. Now, in retrospect, we realize why Prigozhin pulled Wagner forces out, because he wanted to have them available to support his coup attempt. The main issue for Ukrainians is to find soft spots, points of vulnerability in Russian defenses. That may be easier to do now around Bakhmut or in other places. And again, especially if there's a rout of Russian troops. And that could happen as it happened last September in Kharkiv Oblast, when the Ukrainians made such large advances. Those will be the kind of things that the Ukrainian forces will be looking for.
All right, William, Harrison, Courtney, we leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us with your perspective on this story.
You're quite welcome.